Hey there, Crunchy Crew! Don't tell Herbie Jerby I'm back in here. I don't know, I guess we'll just say this episode's outside the regular continuity. So, remember back in January when I said that anything goes? Well, I'm cashing that chip in. See, July went by so quick, and I sort of forgot I had to make a video this month. I do have some excuses, if you're interested. All Puppet Players has started doing live movie nights again at the theater. Plus, we're in rehearsals now for Pup It, which will run from September 8th to October 7th. And I do make regular weekly appearances on the APP online show Re-Examined, where Shannon and I rewatch old episodes of The X-Files. So, I'm a pretty busy guy. But I did commit to doing one video a month for each month of 2023, and I want to stick to that. So, while this isn't exactly the video I planned, I did do that whole Barbenheimer thing recently, so maybe I could make a video about that. Yeah, I'm calling it. This month's episode is... Well, it looks like movie theaters are back. And it wasn't some play-it-safe nostalgia trip like digitally de-aged Indiana Jones or an assembly line comic book movie that put butts back in the seats. Instead, it was a totally different nostalgia trip about a line of children's toys and the period in history when America actually got shit done. It's Barbenheimer, an internet meme about the juxtaposition of two very different films that just so happen to share the same opening weekend. Even though these two movies don't really have all that much in common, the idea of seeing them both back-to-back in one marathon session set the internet ablaze, which is how I wound up spending 6 hours at a movie theater last night, and why my bathroom this morning smells like somebody left a jug of popcorn butter in the sun. We started with Oppenheimer, which I guess technically makes this a review of Oppenheimer. Christopher Nolan's latest film is an epic examination of the life of J. Robert Oppenheimer, the man credited with the invention of atomic weapons. Nolan's screenplay follows an unusual structure, jumping between various points in Oppenheimer's life, chronicling his personal relationships, his work on the Manhattan Project, his political advocacy concerning the use and development of atomics, and his public fall from grace. The movie flits rapidly between these different time periods, with back-to-back scenes often taking place years apart from each other. Each of these story threads is presented more or less linearly on its own, but it does give the movie a somewhat herky-jerky feel. I think Nolan tried his best to ease this effect by really leaning on the film's score, which starts with the opening scene and plays almost non-stop the whole way through. I guess this does give the movie a unified feel, it's just that what it feels like is a 3-hour trailer. There are a couple of spots where the music cools off, but overall the music is extremely noticeable, which is usually not what you want out of a good film score. That said, the movie is still captivating to watch. The performances are great, and the story, as tangled up as it is, really manages to draw you in. The big brains and even bigger egos of all these famous scientists bounce off each other in satisfying ways. But all the science is still depicted in a way that's easy enough for a lay puppet like me to follow. Cillian Murphy does a great job portraying Oppenheimer as one of those brilliant jerks who wishes he could be Dr. House. Matt Damon appears as the gruff but lovable general who puts Oppenheimer on the Manhattan Project. And Robert Downey Jr. makes a meal out of his supporting role as Louis Strauss, former member of the Atomic Energy Commission. Florence Pugh and Emily Blunt also stand out, even if all they're really there to do is to excuse Oppie's mistreatment of them because he's just so ding-dang-dong brilliant. And there's some good cameos by Kenneth Branagh, Rami Malek, and Casey Affleck. For an interesting story, expertly acted and presented by a talented filmmaker rather than a paperclip stack of studio notes, check out Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer. Just don't sit in the first 3 or 4 rows, or else you're gonna have dreams about a kaiju-sized Cillian Murphy slurping you up like a lo mein noodle. Well, unless you're into that kind of thing. Next up, we watched Greta Gerwig's Barbie, a movie about a children's doll that actually seems to be aimed directly at people in their 30s and 40s. It's a non-stop reference extravaganza of old Barbie figures, cars, outfits, accessories, and real estate investments, coupled with some pretty on-the-nose political messaging, but with a script that's funny enough that it never feels like the movie is just pandering. The movie's got some great jokes in it, but they're mostly the kind of jokes that will go over the heads of young kids. And while I'm sure that there's some kind of Barbie-themed app or whatever these days, I gotta figure most people born after the early 2000s aren't gonna have a lot of specific memories about Barbie's dream house or her canonical kid sister Skipper. But hey, And boy oh boy is this a series of words I never thought I'd have to say in this order. If you're a fully grown adult, then the Barbie movie is right up your alley. The story follows stereotypical Barbie, who lives in Barbie land with all her Barbie neighbors and a population of dim-witted Kens. Life in Barbie land is perfect, eternal, unchanging. That is until stereotypical Barbie is suddenly struck with irrepressible thoughts of death.
Do you guys ever think about dying?
This leads to the revelation that someone in the real world is playing with stereotypical Barbie incorrectly, which is causing her to become less ideal and more realistic. And so, to save herself from cellulite and ennui, stereotypical Barbie must travel into the real world to find out what's wrong with the person playing with her. So now you might think you know what kind of movie you're getting. Stereotypical Barbie has to leave the perfect child's playland world behind and enter the cynical reality of our actual world. But not really. The real world in this movie feels like it's populated entirely by Saturday Night Live characters. Up to and very much including Will Ferrell's turn as the Mattel CEO. The actual plot is a little muddy too. So at first it seems like Barbie will need to help overworked mom America Ferrera to reconnect with her daughter and take back control of her life. But then the story pivots to Barbie running from the Mattel company, because her presence in the real world might collapse reality or tank their stock prices or something. And then the movie ends with a patriarchy-infected Ken leading a coup in Barbie land that all the different Barbies have to team up to stop. Okay, so I'll admit that a 6-hour movie marathon was too much for me, and I did fall asleep for maybe 15 minutes during this picture. When I woke up, the movie had a brand new bad guy and an entirely different set of stakes, so I guess I probably did miss a couple of important things, but it still feels like this movie stitched together 3 or 4 different scripts. But all that aside, this movie was still a lot of fun. Margot Robbie is as amazing as ever, bringing real charm and pathos to a character named stereotypical Barbie. Ryan Gosling just about walks off with the movie in his role as Margot Barbie's Ken. We get some great supporting cast with Kate McKinnon, Issa Rae, Michael Cera, and more, and the whole thing mostly has a light feel-good atmosphere that makes it a real entertaining watch. The jokes are good, the cast is great, and the visuals in Barbie Land provide some fun visual gags. All in all, this is a movie that just about anyone can enjoy. Except, I guess, for actual children and Ben Shapiro. And that's Barbenheimer. All in all, I would recommend both of these films. Oppenheimer is great for someone looking for a big, beefy meal of a film, and Barbie is great for someone looking to have a breezy good time. So, what did you think of Barbenheimer? Don't forget to leave a comment telling us what you thought of each movie, and don't forget to like, share, subscribe, follow, pledge, glue your hand to our car and protest, you know, all the good stuff. My name is Crunchy, and this review has been tough, but fair.